It's Crossover Thursday with Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers. Let's roll.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's a crossover between Locked On Steelers and Locked On Cardinals as these two teams face off 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday at Acrisure Stadium in the city of Pittsburgh. I'm Chris Carter. He's Alex Clancy. We represent both teams. Remember, you can find this show on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes on either the Steelers or the Cardinals, whichever you're here to listen for. And as always, check us out and check out our great sponsors at PrizePicks. They sponsor every Crossover Thursday. And with PrizePicks, they're the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. We'll have more on them later. Alex Clancy is here. And Alex, let's talk about how this general game is set up right now. These are two teams, different directions. One team has a new coach that's trying to set up a new tone for where they are. The other team has the same coach it's had since 2007 and is in the mix of the AFC playoffs. The Cardinals at 2-10 right now. The Steelers at 7-4. The Steelers right now would be a playoff team in the AFC, but they have also won all their games, very close fashion, squeaking through, finding the smallest margins to win here. Granted, they've done it 7 times in 11 games. So is this game a trap game in your mind where the Cardinals are a team that can catch somebody slipping if they're not on their A game?
I'm going to answer this in an interesting way. It better be because, with Kyler Murray's 4th game back after his torn ACL, this is kind of the beginning of the last chapter of this season to really see what the Cardinals are going to look like moving forward. So I say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but if the Cardinals come out and perform the way they did against Cleveland, where they got just absolutely smacked by a superior defense, which is something the Steelers have, it's going to be trouble in River City for Arizona. There's going to be the questions immediately coming in about Kyler Murray in the future with this team, where that's kind of a dormant volcano right now, but it's going to go from dormant to active in the snap of a finger if the Cardinals get embarrassed on Sunday. So a trap game, it better be. The Cardinals have some firepower to be able to do so, but that defense terrifies the bejesus out of me more than any defense at any point this season because of where the Cardinals are in their fragile state in Week 13.
I want to talk about that defense and that matchup with the Cardinals offense in a bit here, but I got to flip it real quick because the question everyone in Pittsburgh is waiting to see has been all season: when will Kenny Pickett break out? Will he ever have the game that people hope that he can have in Pittsburgh? Last week, the Steelers eclipsed 400 yards for the first time since 2020, week 2 of 2020. And it was the first game without offensive coordinator Matt Canner after he was fired. And there's a lot of belief that, hey, maybe they can start to take those steps forward. Granted, they only scored 16 points against the Bengals. You hope that you could do a little bit better than that. But what are the problems that you've seen with this Cardinals defense? Because you look at the rankings and they're giving up the 31st most points in the league. They're giving up they're giving up the 26th most yards. They're 30th against the run. This looks like they just have a lot of problems going on despite having guys like Budda Baker on their defense.
Yeah, so the interesting part about the Cardinals defense is it was pretty much a forgotten entity this offseason, especially in free agency. They brought over Kazir White from the Eagles, who knows Gannon and Nick Rollis' defense on the IR, probably out for the rest of the year. Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson are finally healthy, but when you look at this defense, especially the cornerback room, even though they drafted Garrett Williams in the 3rd round, it was kind of a forgotten part, and this was a 2-year rebuild, so it was a conscious decision to allocate draft capital and free agency dollars elsewhere. What terrifies me about this weekend is, yes, the run defense is terrible. The interior of the defensive line is another weak spot the Cardinals have. And with Broderick Jones, who we're going to talk about in the 3rd segment, it seems like the run game is finally starting to get cooking, which would be a fantastic catalyst for a struggling quarterback to be able to pick his spots, use play action a little bit more, and then, test the guys like Pat Freiermuth and George Pickens and Deontay Johnson on the outside, the latter of whom, those two wide receivers could definitely eat on Sunday with how the Cardinals cornerback room has been this year. They're just pretty much devoid of talent.
That's where I'm at right now, is that the Steelers, is this the situation where it's the movable object versus the stoppable force? Because the Steelers offense, despite the excitement around it right now, has not put up the points yet. Now, I will say this, for 4 straight games, the Steelers have rushed for over 150 yards. That coincides with the starting of Broderick Jones. I want to get to him and Paris Johnson Jr. in a bit, because both of those guys were big talking points heading into this season. But what do the Cardinals have any ammunition that could be a problem for the Steelers in the run game? Or is this a situation where there's too many holes on the Cardinals defense to give hope that they're going to be able to do a whole lot?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. Losing Kazir White is problematic.
That's tough.
He was kind of the heartbeat in the middle of the defense. Zaven Collins is a non-factor. I'm assuming they're not going to pick up his 5th-year option. This is just the unraveling of everything Steve Keim did in real time. So with this stuff, this isn't a broken vessel. This is a vessel that has been burned to the ground in an effort to rebuild it up. So no, this isn't going to be a very fun Q&A when I don't have a yes for you. Pretty much everything you ask me, Chris Carter, is going to be a no. And it's not a bad thing. This is the part of the journey for the Cardinals where this happens. This isn't a Pittsburgh Steelers organization that has the stability and perpetuity, having 3 head coaches over the last 75 decades, however long it's been. And, this is a team that's dysfunction has been its defining attribute. And this is something that, we're starting to pivot away from that with the new regime, hopefully. And, Cardinals saving face, having Najee and Jalen Warren not both run for over 100 yards would be a win. I just think it's something the Cardinals have been, they've been consistently competitive this year until we've started to see sprinkles of it, not so much, towards the tail end. So I don't know if it's just going to be, I know this is a long-winded answer, but, I don't know if there's going to be a malaise at this point where it's like, oh, look, there's the finish line, where these guys are human beings and you don't necessarily have the force you're playing with that you did in the first handful of weeks.
Listen, I feel you, man. I'm growing up in Pittsburgh. I've watched the Pirates my whole life, and there's been some. I've never had to cover the Pirates, but if I had to talk about the Pirates all the time, I'd be mad. I'd be pretty heated. But in all seriousness, I think that's where I think that's a legitimate place where you're at right now, is that the Cardinals are in full rebuild. That's another sign that the Steelers, they can't afford to lose this game, especially because right now the Steelers, they're legitimately in the AFC North hunt. If they win this game, they'd be a game back of the Ravens. They've already beaten the Ravens. The Ravens at some point this season will have to, in about a couple weeks here, will have to play back-to-back the Jaguars, the Niners, and the Dolphins before playing the Steelers in the season finale. Meanwhile, the Steelers play the Cardinals, the Patriots, the Colts, the Bengals again with their backup quarterback, and then the Seahawks. There's a chance for the Steelers to make a move here, and that's why we're emphasizing, the point of this could be a very much a trap game, and asking the question about Kenny Pickett maybe having a breakout. I will say also, Kazir White, a lot of people in this area know and love that guy because of his time at West Virginia, what he did for the Mountaineers there. So that is disappointing to see him out. I want to talk more about this matchup, specifically the quarterbacks here and what we might see in this game. We'll do that with Alex Clancy from Locked On Cardinals. I'm Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers. Stick with us. It's Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network, talking Steelers Cardinals. We still got a lot to discuss. But first, we want to talk to you about our great sponsors at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling against thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, and all you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can watch the winnings roll in. It's a much easier way to play these games. PrizePicks is the fun new daily fantasy game that everyone needs to start playing right now. With basketball season here, you can also play in what they call their specials leagues. These are leagues created specifically to combine both football and basketball and to have fun while doing so. For example, if you like LeBron James and Travis Kelce, you can pick a combination of 10.5 where you can just say they will get 10 point more or less 10.5 of 3-pointers made combined with receptions made by both those guys. You say more or less, you can get your winnings on PrizePicks. Again, just pick 2 to 6 players and you could be rolling it in. And PrizePicks also has a unique reboot policy where your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For NFL games and college top 25 matchups, that means if your player exits the game in the first half and doesn't return in the second, that player is rebooted. That makes PrizePicks the only daily fantasy sports platform with injury insurance. PrizePicks is the daily fantasy sports platform that you need to get to right away because they offer so many great things, and they're available all across sports: NFL, college football, NBA, NHL, college basketball. They're everywhere. So go download PrizePicks as an app on your phone or go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL today. And when you go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL, use the code LockedOnNFL, all capital letters, all one word, and you'll get a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. We're back here on Crossover Thursday. Locked On Steelers meets Locked On Cardinals. We're breaking things down here. Chris Carter and Alex Clancy. All right, Alex, I want to give you a chance to get your opinions on Kyler Murray, because let me make it clear. Even though the Steelers just gained 400 yards of offense and Kenny Pickett looked pretty decent against the Bengals, it has not been sunshine and rainbows in the cities of Pittsburgh when it comes to the offensive play. There's been a lot of questions as far as, do the Steelers need to move on, need to draft a quarterback? And I have even gotten, I do a call-in line. I have gotten calls this season. I can't do calls during the season as much because we're so busy. But I've gotten calls this season asking, should the Steelers trade for Kyler Murray? Because when you're struggling at quarterback, everything's an answer. Everything is a potential answer. I'm sure you can account for that for the times that the Cardinals have had, maybe even lately with Kyler Murray coming back from injury. Where is Kyler Murray right now, and what is his future? Is it definitely with this team, or where do you see it going?
Damn it, Christopher. I don't know. So this has been so I've been on the aisle of Kyler Murray won in spite of Cliff Kingsbury, not because of him. I've been that. And I will continue to say that because I think that Cliff Kingsbury had no business getting that job. That's like me getting the next Steelers job. Doesn't make any sense, but that's what happened. 4 years, Kyler Murray. Now he tore his ACL, and you never want anybody to get injured, even your most hated rival on the football field. He got hurt at the worst time possible to gauge what he's going to be for the future of this team. So he's been back for 3 weeks. They won the first week. He played worse the second week, and he played terrible last week against the Rams. What is the rational time for a guy that's been out for 11 months? There's 5 games left. It's a lost season. What's the metric? That's my question. What's the metric? Does he throw for 400 yards and they lose? Is that a metric? Does he play terribly and they win? Is that a better metric? Like, where I'm at now is this Sunday starts the Kyler Murray's future parade, whatever. He needs to play competent, good football against some very tough teams. They play the Eagles and they play the 49ers and Seattle after the Steelers. So this is not going to be an easy road. You got to see the kid play, and you got to see exactly what you've got. I still think he's the guy for the future. Check. It's like an ex-girlfriend. You want to break up with your ex-girlfriend? Check her DMs. 15 teams would be calling about Kyler Murray if the Cardinals don't. And that's got to count for something. That's got to, right? I mean, Chris, let me ask you. You've seen enough out of Kyler Murray. I know it's from, the opposite coast. Would you retain him regardless of what happens at the end of the year? Have you seen enough to show that this is a guy that could be a fringe star with how much expletive football there's been from the quarterback position this year?
Listen, I think he's talented enough that if you build around him the right way, you can. Yeah. My problem is I also believe that this isn't just about Kyler Murray. This is the state of the NFL, right? If you don't have Patrick Mahomes or one of those primo A1 dudes that's in that MVP conversation week in and week out, the quarterback position is one that you better invest into carefully, because you could get the right guy. And if you don't build around him the right way, you just wasted a whole bunch of money and everybody's time. And I think that's the problem the Cardinals are in right now, is that not only do they not know about Kyler Murray, they don't know what they're going to do around Kyler Murray. And that's where the Steelers, I think that they have an advantage with Kenny Pickett, is they got TJ Watt. They've got Minkah Fitzpatrick. Cam Hayward's on, towards the end of his career, but he's still a captain. You have structure. You have young guys that you believe in, like Alex Highsmith, rookies like Joey Porter Jr., Broderick Jones, guys that you're really excited about. Najee Harris being a leader, George Pickens, all these younger dudes that you're hoping evolve into keep up the culture that you've maintained because of Mike Tomlin, what he does as a coach. If you're the Cardinals, it's a tough question to say, what do you do with Kyler Murray right now? Because you have so much other rebuilding things to do around him. You could pay him a good amount of money to stay and keep him, and you'll have that star quarterback. But will that hamper you from going out and making the big trades that you need to do to build a better offensive line for the future? Because frankly, also the way Kyler Murray plays, he needs a good offensive line. He's not a guy like 2008 Ben Roethlisberger who can take 50 hits a season and just be all right. I think that's the dilemma the Cardinals are really in right now, and something that could lead to it. And that's the thing. Like, if the Cardinals coming with Kyler Murray, I think the Steelers would at least hear him out. They like him. Like, I've heard Mike Tomlin talk about Kyler Murray a lot and the threats that he forces a defense to honor. There's respect there, and so I don't think the Steelers would necessarily turn that away just blindly, but I think they're also in a position where they are loving that they are just paying for Kenny Pickett with a rookie contract, and they want to do that for about 2 more years before they get to that level. That's the dilemma that the Cardinals have to answer. Do they want to enter that path?
Yeah, that's well said. I mean, there's 2 real outliers in the quarterback position. It's Patrick Mahomes and now it's Brock Purdy. Neither of those things are rules. That doesn't exist. It's Fugazi. You can't compare anything to either of those guys. You know what I mean?
We got a Fugazi.
Yeah, you just can't do it because Patrick Mahomes is the best. He may be the best quarterback we've ever seen.
Yeah,
but when his career is over, he's at least on trajectory to do it. And Brock Purdy makes $11 a year, and they can build out around everybody else. That's not real life. And you're right. With Kyler, it's like, I don't know if it's a fool's errand for me to continue to blame Steve Keim for the state that the Cardinals are in, because even before him, this has been a dysfunctional, non-winning franchise. So they don't know what they have, but what I do know is they've got 2 first-round picks next year. I think they've got 6 picks in the top 100. And that's the way you build around a quarterback who's making a whole bunch of cheese. And he's already like the 10th highest paid quarterback. That's going to go down so quickly. And if you draft properly, that's how you win. Let me tell you, name one quarterback who got the bag and won a Super Bowl after that. Aside from Patrick Mahomes, who only got $140 million guaranteed out of that $500 million contract.
It's a very good point.
Nobody has. Russell Wilson hasn't. Nobody has. So until they correct it, they're just playing the game. And then Monty Osborne just has to spend a bunch of money to get some defensive players, get offensive linemen, and nail the draft again. That's how you redirect a crap box situation into. But with Kyler Murray being the conductor, like, I don't see that as being a far-fetched recipe to win. And that's what I've been struggling with, because he throws an interception, ball tapped to the line, and then you look at Tommy DeVito playing for Daniel Jones or Bryce Young or like all these guys, Derek Carr. It's like that mess ain't working. Kyler Murray's shown that he's been able to work. And you're right.
I hear you on that.
It's just a fragile foundation right now in Arizona.
Listen, that's part of why, there's, I don't know if you ever hear these wins or not, Alex, but there's a part of Steelers Nation that feels like Mike Tomlin is ruining everything for the Steelers. And I try to tell people, go talk to other fans, like diehard fans, people who cover these other teams that just have dealt with so many bad years, really bad years. Like, people say Pittsburgh, has had so many bad years under Mike Tomlin. He hasn't had a losing season yet. And this is what I'm talking about, this kind of dysfunction. And with talent that you're excited about, people are excited about Kyler Murray. Larry Fitzgerald was a Cardinal for so many seasons. There's been talent in Arizona, but because there's not that same stability, it hasn't had a chance to manifest and grow into something that can get the franchise the Super Bowls that you hope the Steelers can keep adding on to. But at the same time, the Steelers, they have got everyone go through their punches. The Steelers, they saw an exodus of players in the span of about two seasons. Le'Veon Bell disappeared. Stephon Tuitt retired. Antonio Brown went crazy. Ben Roethlisberger's arm fell off. Ryan Shazier got paralyzed. We could keep going down the line, but there were just big player after big player. Marquise Pouncey, David DeCastro retired much earlier than they thought they would, and yet, despite having to start guys that were professional duck callers at quarterback, the Steelers never faded and became a top 10 pick team because Mike Tomlin strung them together.
Yep.
And people say that Mike Tomlin has lost the locker room because they lost a game one out of every 4 weeks sometimes. That is what I try to balance people with and give perspective to whenever I hear it locally in Pittsburgh. And then I talk to people like yourself all across the country about what every NFL franchise is battling every single week.
Marriage is boring. Being single is exciting. Being single sucks. Stay married.
That's a great phrase. I'm going to steal that, Alex. Oh, man. All right. We got to talk some more about this matchup here. It's particularly about the two offensive tackles that drew a lot of questions and a lot of conversations in the draft. I want to ask Alex about Paris Johnson Jr., and we'll talk about Broderick Jones, questions where they are, and some final looks at the matchups that we think will play into this game, all here on Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. But first, I want to remind you this show is also brought to you by DoorDash. Why root for your team on an empty stomach? Order on DoorDash and save on football watch party favorites. You can order your favorites like pizza, wings, pop, burgers, or even just buns. I got a question for you, Alex. Do you call it soda or do you call it pop?
Soda, because I'm a rational human
What
being.
is wrong? No, get off my show. Anyways, we got to keep this ad roll going. You going with soda. There's no, get out of here with that. It's pop. Everyone should know it's actually pop. But in all seriousness, you can order whatever soda or pop you want on DoorDash with your favorite meal. And like me in Pittsburgh, I'll get me some Big Shot Bob, some Frank White sauce rings, and it's a happy day. Or some Permane sandwich. Get them French fries on the sandwich. No coleslaw. I don't do it like that. But we keep it rolling here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm sure the Locked On Cardinals podcast got great food for you there as well.
Yeah.
But all of that can be ordered to your door from DoorDash. And right now, DoorDash gets you 50% off up to $10 in value when you spend $15 or more on your first order, or when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKED23. Subject to change, terms and conditions apply. You can get prepared for game day, and you can also get all your favorite grocery store items and restaurant favorites delivered right to your door with a $0 delivery fee if you sign up for a Dash Pass membership today. And don't forget, they have a 50% off deal right now, 50% off on $10 in value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. When you download the DoorDash app, just enter the code LOCKED23, that's LOCKED23, subject to change, terms and conditions apply. We're also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the number one sportsbook in America. Right now, new customers can get over $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. Yes, if you're a Steelers fan and you think the Steelers are about to beat the Cardinals, put $5 on them and you get $150 in bonus bets right in your account. Or if you're a Cardinals fan and you think this is the week, put that $5 on and you can get it $150 back in bonus bets. And that's bonus bets that you can spend on spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. FanDuel has so many ways to win, and there's no better time to get in on the action. That's why you got to go to FanDuel right now. See all the numbers, odds, lines, ends, everything that you can bet on in every sport, not just football, college football, basketball, college basketball, hockey, whatever your jam is. FanDuel Sportsbook is going to help you have fun and make money while doing it. FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season the rest of the way, heading into the playoffs with an offer that you won't want to miss. And again, that's FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. Back here on Crossover Thursday here in the Locked On Podcast Network, Chris Carter, Alex Clancy. We're going over some things here. Before we dive more into this matchup, I want to talk about two guys that were heavily talked about in the NFL draft. And that's Paris Johnson Jr. and Broderick Jones. Now, these are two guys that both went to big schools, Ohio State, Georgia. Everyone was wondering who would go first. The Cardinals took Paris Johnson Jr. at 6th overall. The Steelers, everyone knew that they wanted an offensive tackle. I was one of the few that said they're going to go get Broderick Jones. They're going to trade up with the Patriots to get him because they want to leapfrog the Jets. They did exactly that, going and getting him at 14. Now, Paris Johnson Jr., if you look on PFF, has given up pressures. He's given up. He's had some rough moments, but that is an offense that had a lot of problems going on with. You had Josh Dobbs starting for it for a long time. As much as we love Josh Dobbs here in Pittsburgh, everyone acknowledges he's Josh Dobbs. That's a tough situation. What have you seen out of Paris Johnson Jr.? Has he lived up to the 6th overall pick hype as a rookie?
Yeah, it's graded on a curve here. You know,
of course,
the Cardinals got a first-round pick and still got to take the guy they wanted. You know, so that was for those that don't remember they traded back from 3 to 12 and then back up to 6 to draft Paris Johnson because the Cardinals were not going to make it through the gauntlet of all the teams between 6 and 12 who needed offensive line help. He's played 100% of the snaps. He's looked more like a rookie the last couple games, but the dude wants to be here. He was like seeing young guys coming in, smiling during training camp, rookie mini camp, mandatory camp, whatever it is, happy to be wearing an Arizona Cardinals uniform. That's a nice thing. It's not like it never happens, but, him and Kyler, they wanted to link up. They got him. And, put it this way, the Cardinals drafted Josh Jones out of Oklahoma a couple years ago in the 3rd round. He didn't see the field before they traded him to Houston. Okay, if Paris Johnson Jr. wasn't good enough to be starting at right guard, he wouldn't be. So I think that's a big thing moving forward because they had Kelvin Beachum. Kelvin Beachum could have played. He could have started at right tackle. He started at right tackle the last 4 years for the Cardinals. He's been fine. And there's one thing that I go by. As long as the rookie, when you watch him, you're not saying, oh, no, it's okay. Some will pop right away, and some will slowly, incrementally get better. If you don't say, oh, no, John Ross, oh, no, Kevin White, oh, no, Jonathan Cooper, who the Cardinals drafted a handful of years ago, even though he had a compound fracture his rookie year, just never amounted to anything. That's a good thing, especially with an offensive lineman. Now, pivoting to Broderick Jones, did he unlock Najee Harris? Like, is there a direct correlative? Because Najee Harris was too slow. He couldn't 3 yards a carry. I couldn't run behind, he couldn't run behind the worst offensive line. Nobody could. So is that a direct correlative between the two? I'm assuming.
I've been saying for a while, Broderick Jones was going to boost the Steelers offense. Again, he started one game against the Ravens, did a really good job locking down Jadeveon Clowney in that game. They took him back out. They put back in a guy at left tackle. He started at right tackle for 4 straight games, and for 4 straight games, Steelers have, as a team, have rushed for over 150 yards. Some weeks it's Jalen Warren, some weeks it's Najee Harris, but they're running the ball. He has been an asset here, and I agree with you. Rookies don't always need to explode and boom. If they hold it down, if they can fight through it, especially on teams like the Cardinals right now that are struggling to find answers, that's what you want to see. Warriors that stay true to their goals, that stay true to the team, and fight through the tough moments. So that when you do have everything right, that guy has been through thick and thin. So I think that's really good signs that we're hearing from Paris Johnson Jr. We only have a few minutes left here, so let's talk about the actual game here. Alex, give me the biggest thing that if you see a Cardinals upset happening, what has to happen for that to occur?
Multiple forced turnovers. And I don't really think that that's like, I give myself crap every Friday when I do pass to victory because winning the turnover battle is the number one thing every week. The Cardinals need to be able to be opportunistic, whether it be getting to the quarterback, pressuring Kenny Pickett, tipping the balls at the line, forcing fumbles. Kenny Pickett is not the best quarterback in the NFL. Okay. He can turn the ball over. And the Cardinals need to win the turnover battle and give the offense any sort of leverage possible to get extra possessions on short fields. That's it. Because if they're dropping into coverage and having to cover for 4 or 5 seconds, they're going to get eaten up regardless of who the quarterback is. If they're not getting to Kenny Pickett and he's having what I call tea parties in the backfield, they're not going to win. And if they can't stop the run, it's almost secondary because at least they're not massive chunk gains like there usually is in the passing game as opposed to, death by 1,000 cuts in the run game. And don't get me started with Jalen Warren in the pass game or Najee Harris in the pass game. I think I'll just melt, and we don't have enough time with Ross Jackson not getting pissed off at us. So I'm going to say it's got to be the turnover battle. They've got to turn Kenny Pickett over multiple times if they want to keep this a one-score game and have a chance to win at the end.
Well, Cardinals fans, if you're holding out for an upset and and that's your biggest key, Kenny Pickett, he has only thrown 2 touchdowns in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. 2 touchdowns in the last 7 games. But he's also not thrown a single interception in that span. That's exactly what Mike Tomlin has been coaching them to do, is protect the football. They've prioritized it. The Steelers are tied with the Niners this year with a plus 11 turnover differential. I agree that turnovers are the big thing in today's NFL game. That if you get those, any team can close the gap in yards and all those other things if you force turnovers and make those big splash plays. That's what the Steelers have been very good at on both sides of the ball, creating turnovers on one end and limiting it on the other. We don't need to do our score predictions. I always save that for my Friday episode. But Alex, I thank you so much for joining me here on this crossover Thursday. It's been a lot of fun talking with you. I know it's always rough to cover tough teams. I've covered my fair share, but I think you're doing a great job with the information and managing through and finding the things the Cardinals fans needs to hold on to. Let people know they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Romance engaged. At Clancy's Corner on Twitter. Locked On Cardinals, free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Oh yeah, man, it's been fun. It's always fun doing these crossovers. We haven't done one have you and I?
We've never done one. This is our first because it would have been 2019, and I was actually off that week because I was at a wedding that weekend, and Tony Serino handled it for me. So
that's right. Yeah, I was going to say we haven't done one. So look at us.
Look at us.
We did it.
We did it. He's Alex Clancy. I'm Chris Carter. Find me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com, and find both of us here on the Locked On Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts, on your favorite podcasting app or on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes. We're both back with our Friday episodes, giving you our final looks at this game, predictions, everything else you need. Stay tuned here with us on the Locked On Podcast Network.